If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials, without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/getstarted for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/audio.
Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. Go to emailrevealer.com, get a copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator. And also, let's say you want to catch somebody cheating online, you send me their email address. I could trace it back to online dating websites. Since this is sort of a mistress-themed show today with our guest. By the way, too, now if you've never heard the show before, check out OppermanReport.com. We have on there's plenty of content on there. Okay, if you like the show, you'll like what's in there. We have a members section where exclusive content. You could sign up, you could join, become a member. Boy, just did a really good show with John Masseria. He sent out all these Freedom of Information Act requests for documents regarding the urban moving systems. And this is totally exclusive information. No one's ever reported on it before. And it's in my members section right now. We had a bunch of shows, too, with the girlfriend of Bill Menser, the Son of Sam guy, with the murdered Roy Radin, convicted hitman. Did another show with, oh, boy, too many to think about. But we got a great show today. I don't want to keep our guests waiting. We have Sally Miller. She's the author of Beauty Queen, Let No Deed Go Unpunished. Sally, are you there?
Hi, I'm here, Ed, and it's Let No Deed Go Unpublished.
Unpublished?
Yes, it's a play on the old, I think Noel Coward said, let no good deed go unpunished. Well, mine is let no deed go unpublished.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay,
meaning,
first, yeah.
It means everyone should, if they do something, that should be up for publication.
That is brilliant, first of all. And second of all, saying, don't say something you don't want repeated to others. Well, don't do something you don't want someone to publish in a book. Yeah, that's right. They say, say it, forget it, write it, regret it.
I haven't heard that, but I like that. I may have to use that. I like it.
Yeah, that's in the PI world. They say that. Okay. Sally, tell people who you are. Give us a little background, because I was reading this. You sent me like a 3-page email today with a little bit about your background.
I know.
And I am so impressed. I got to say, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to. If you live long enough and you have enough energy, you can accomplish quite a bit in your life. And when I was very young, I had a very troubling childhood. I was sexually abused by my mother. I had a sibling, an older brother, 3 years older, and he also was abused. The difference was that I was her enemy, but my older brother was her lover. And it's pretty sick sounding, but if you lived it, it was even sicker. So I kept this secret all my life. And what I did to counter that, rather than be a depressed child, I went to the library and I read medical books, I read travel books. I just saturated my brain with everything I could read. And that's where I got the idea that someday I wanted to go to China and travel the Great Wall, the length of it, so I could find out all the mysteries, because none of the books could tell me exactly how long it was, who had built it, why they built it, and what happened to the wall all these centuries later. And through the help of my fourth grade geography teacher, I was able to get my geography book and still have it. And she motivated me. She made it sound like I could ride across town on a bus and I could see the Great Wall. She made it sound so easy. But her one thing was, you must believe in yourself. And so that became my motto. Whatever happens, I must believe in me.
Let me ask you a question. How old were you when you went? How old were you when you went to the Great Wall? How old were you?
I was 49, and I was just beginning menopause. Now, that's important for your female listeners.
Okay. Now, how do you do that? It said something like it takes 7 months to travel the Great Wall. How do you do it? By car? How do you do that?
No. I trained from the time I was 28 in order to... my mother arranged my marriage, and he was as controlling as she was, and abusive too, but in a different way. And so my next door neighbor was a young guy, and he saw me popping pills, and he saw me depressed, and I was trying to raise these two little girls. And he said, you know, Miss Perdue, I was married by that time. The married name was Perdue. He said, Miss Perdue, I can take you to the high school track when I go over to train, and you'll feel so much better because you'll be able to exercise and learn to sweat. Well, for an old beauty queen, the last thing you want to do is sweat. But I was frantic. I was desperate. I really had lost my direction. So little by little, he taught me how to run. And it released me. It stopped the pills. It stopped the depression. And it gave me a new lease on life. It didn't improve my marriage, but it taught me how to live in a bad situation with a person who was basically a dead-end street. So as I was running one day, I said, my gosh, I want to go to China. I want to learn all the mysteries of the Great Wall. Why not run the Great Wall of China? That will be my focus. That will be my mission. So that's when I really launched the idea of running the Great Wall. But if you don't know much about the Great Wall, the picture books fool you. They make you think it's a smooth surface, kind of a super highway. But when you get there, it's most of it is crumbled. Most of it is impossible to be on top of. So I paralleled the wall as much as I could. I stayed, as much in the direction at points where there was no wall. I had to just trace between these towers, and those were usually about equivalent of a half a mile between each one of them. And I went from tower to tower. I was on top of the wall maybe 115 miles. I had a mileage meter. In fact, I had two of them.
Well, then let me ask you this now. Wait. So you had like a backpack with a tent, and then you would sleep? What would you do?
Oh, my goodness. I had a backpack in one hand on my back, and then had all these little bags around my waist, and then I had a rolled-up tent in one hand, and I had to run with all of this. And then when I could run, but I was climbing most of the time. And in the other hand, I had a sleeping bag rolled up. And all the items were donated. This is what was so amazing. I would never have had the money to create this project and get the airline tickets and buy all the paraphernalia I needed to pay media people to be with me. As it turned out, the Chinese said they were going to have their sports ministry involved. They were going to help me carry my load. They were going to have way stations for me to find water and food. And they were going to plan all this prior to my visit. I was over there twice before I actually went for the wall itself. And they never asked for money. They wanted to film it. They wanted a documentary. And I was so excited. I was just like the 9-year-old girl who had launched this idea so many years ago. And then the night before I was supposed to start the run the next day, I was supposed to fly to the western part of the wall where the wall originated in Jiayuguan. I had a press conference. The ambassador the American ambassador to China was there. It was widely covered by their media and some of ours. And when I got back to my hotel room, there was a fax under my door, been slipped under my door. And it was from the sports ministry, and they said, Miss Purdon, we will need $87,000 before you start your run tomorrow. Talk about last minute. And I think it was part of the plan. It's like all the hype, and how could she pull out now? We need the money, and she's going to have to give it to us. But, of course, I didn't have $87,000.
Write him a check, right? You could write him a check and take off, right? I'm out of town.
At the end of the fax, they said, but, we'll give you time to go back to America to get the money if you don't have it with you. And then when you come back, we'll start the journey.
Oh. Well, what happened? Did you come up with the money?
Well, I picked up the telephone, and I called their office, because in those days we didn't have cell phones. And I called their office, and I said, I don't have the money, nor will I be able to go back and raise the money. This was not part of the plan. So I have a motto. When you're up against the wall, just run for it. So, fellas, catch me if you can. And I had to, of course, leave the big bags back in the room. And the hotel said we'd put them in storage. He didn't really think that the Chinese police would let me get on the plane, because they knew my plan. They knew exactly. I had the ticket and everything. And I got to the airport and got on the plane, and me and my little bags full of chocolate peanuts and energy bars, and I had 12 bottles of water in my backpack, and that's all the water I had. I was really going on faith, really. And as it turned out, in China, they have to boil their water.
Oh, my God. Because
they don't have fresh water. So the poorest of the poor out in the countryside boil their water, and they keep them in these Chinese thermos-looking utensils. So I spent most of my time in search of water. That's what delayed my trip, because I'd have to leave the wall or the area of the wall and go out. But there were always people. They've got the most populated country in the world. So I was never too far from a farmer or a vendor or someone, even though it was in the wildest part of China, in the real wilderness. And I didn't know any Chinese except shui, which means water. And Bing shui is cold water, and of course they didn't have any of that. But I took what they had, and they were always gracious. I was safer on the Great Wall of China than I am on the streets of America. But you don't know it until you go over there.
So all you learned how to say was water. You didn't learn how to say beer or pizza. See, I would have thought ahead.
I love it. When I go back, I'll make sure I know how to
bring me with you. I'll do the translation. Beer and pizza we want, and chicken wings. Okay.
Well, you should take your show. We should do it. Take your show there and do it live from the wall.
That would be an adventure, Yeah.
It would be the adventure of your life, and certainly, if I live long enough, of mine. Well, I don't know how old you are, Ed, so you have to take in consideration, I do like younger men.
Oh, my God.
So I would probably become very much younger on the wall with you, I'm sure.
Well, I'm 53 years old. And
you're such a... And that's interesting, yeah.
You'd be robbing the cradle, but also, too, it would be kind of interesting to be in the same place as Bill Clinton had been, So I don't know, we might want to...
Wow. I thought we'd never get back to the reason you and I are supposed to talk, right?
To go down that same road as Clinton went, okay.
That's for another show.
That is for another show. That is a fascinating story about the whole China thing. That's incredible. I got another question for you there. Now, when you were being molested by your mother, because that's pretty unusual. I
know it is. I know.
It's unusual to be reported. Women do molest kids, but it's usually a caretaker or a babysitter or a school teacher. And it's not as unusual as people think for mothers to abuse their daughters sexually. But how old were you when it was going on?
It's interesting because I can remember as far back as before we moved to my little town of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, when I was 2. My father was transferred from his railroad job in Missouri to Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And I can remember the house and remember what I thought was a babysitter who was hurting me. And I kept asking my mother who the babysitter was. I kept asking, why did she leave me alone with her? And my mother, who had a violent temper, told me to shut up or she would shut me up. And I knew, and I feared her. But when I was 17, my father, bless his heart, he never knew this. He worked for the railroad. He had 2 different businesses. He worked constantly, but when he was working full-time at the railroad, he was away at nights. He was an engineer, and most of his trips were overnight. And that's when my mother started. But anyway, she kept telling me to shut up and that nobody can remember before they're 2 years of age and all this stuff. But I would remember, I would have these flashbacks, and they were frightening, and I could remember these stairs that would go up and then hit a landing and then turn and go up to a second floor. And that room at the top of the stairs is where this incident happened, when I remember I was lying on a table in front of a woman on a couch. She had my legs open, and she was probing me, and it hurt. And I remember crying, and I remember hearing what sounded like doors banging together. And I looked up, and there was a window high above me, and I kept saying to the window silently, please help me get this stopped. And so when I went in this house, my father, I kept saying, Daddy, I want to see where I lived in this town of Thornfeld, Missouri. And so every summer we went back there to visit relatives. And over my mother's objections, my father said, well, what could it hurt? I mean, we don't know who lives there, but we can knock on the door and she can ask. She wants to see about these stairs. She wants to know what these doors banging together mean. So I knocked on the door, and a lady came and was very friendly, and I said, could I just see where I lived when I was very young? And she invited me in, and my father stayed on the porch, and I went in by myself, and she said, I'll leave you alone. And I looked to the left, and there were these enormous wooden doors. In older houses, they had wooden doors that you would open. Folding doors didn't work. These were sliding doors. And it all fit together. Then I started walking up the stairs, and it seemed like my legs were real short. And it was a struggle to reach the steps because they were far apart, just like it would have been if I'd been a child trying to climb the stairs. And then the stairs turned. They hit a landing, then they turned. And when I went in the room at the top of the stairs, I looked up, and there was the window. Now, the furniture was different. The wallpaper was different. But I became that little girl again. And I was on a table in front of a sofa. And when I looked in the face of that woman, it was not a babysitter. It was my mother. And I tell about this in my book because at that point, I had to decide I couldn't confront her, but I would wait, and I would keep that secret inside, that not only had she abused me when I was 3 and 4 and 5, when I could remember for certain, but it went all the way back as far as I could remember, and that was when I lived in that house. And, you know, the saddest part, you would know that when you're with a railroading family, you get to ride the train free, the passenger trains. And that's how I went back and forth to college. But my mother always slept when we went on the train for holidays. My father was always working. He wasn't along, but she would invite friends and their children, and yet she would always sleep with my brother. And I would end up with the mother of the other children. It was a very sick situation. But the only way you can live with a situation like that is you have to transport yourself to a better place. And so I play dress up and pretend, and I lived through these books. And can you imagine a child of age of 8 reading medical books, finding out how babies are born? And that's how I learned about the sex organs of animals, because I read about it. And that took me away from all this. But I always kept journals, and I hid them from my mother. And I said, someday I'm going to write about her. Someday I'm going to let the truth be known. And that someday didn't come until I was in my 50s. I started writing, but then that was interrupted by other things. So here I am in my 70s, and I am almost ready to get the book published. You know, the Clintons have power, and I've had 3 different publishers say we're too closely tied to the Democratic Party to be able to publish your book. Or one of them actually said, we don't want to confront the Clintons. If we publish your book, they're going to come after us. Now, I know you're liberal. I don't know if you are a dyed-in-the-wool, card-carrying Democrat. But that doesn't matter, because I'm not a card-carrying Republican. I'm not an independent. I just never wanted to get involved in politics. I just voted for the person that I liked. But I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton, okay?
Well, I can't blame you for that, and neither am I. I'm voting for Bernie to 100%. That's funny. Laura told you that I'm not a... She must have told you about my politics.
Okay. Law, let the secret out.
Okay. Oh, well, good. Listen, we don't have to worry about it.
That's okay. You know, this is a big world, and we all should be able to feel what we want to feel and do what we want to do as long as it doesn't hurt someone else.
Now,
and
do you think that you got involved in all the beauty queen stuff like that because of your childhood of abuse?
My mother enrolled me in the first Miss Pine Bluff pageant. I was in college. And, look, my mother told me from the time I was, I guess the first time I put on a swimsuit, no one's going to give you a second look. You're flat-chested and you've got long, skinny legs. They look like bird legs. And she used to tease me and call me bird legs. She wouldn't let me close my bedroom door, and she would say, what do you care? No one wants to look at your flat chest and your ugly, skinny legs. So it was up to me to keep my morale boosted. It was up to me to be my own best friend, because I sure as heck didn't get it from any other area of the country. But my father was my saving grace. My father loved me. He was a classic gentleman, but he, too, was deathly afraid of my mother. He and I were more alike than any, father and daughter could have been. He had the long, thin legs. He was flat-chested, too. It didn't bother him like it bothered me. But Ed, no child should have to face that type of childhood. If you let it, and some people are not strong. I was just lucky enough to have the love of my father and the inspiration to go to the library every Saturday. It warps you. My brother never had any confidence. My mother destroyed his manhood. He died when he was 58, had a heart attack. But I think stress over all those years created that situation. And he and I never talked about it. He alluded to it twice. Once when he wanted me to see his psychiatrist at the request of the psychiatrist, and the second time was 3 days before he died. And he said, do you think anyone ever guessed our secret? That was the only time he had alluded to the fact that we had that sexual abuse in the family. And I said, oh, no, Jerry, our secret was safe. No one ever knew.
Now, did he die before your mother died?
Oh, yeah. He died in 1994. And he died in February, and I went to China in May because I was right in the middle of the harassment, the Ron Tucker abuse and all the things that had been dictated by Hillary. I've got to give Hillary credit. She drives a mean bulldozer when she wants her husband to be president. She bulldozes everything and anything that's in the path out of the way. And she isn't as strong as she was then. And she's a little bit nervous because, of course, she wants to be president. She's obsessed to be president. It's an obsession with Hillary. And she really believes she deserves it. She's worked hard for it. And it's her turn. And Bill's not able to drive the bulldozer. He can barely stand up.
Yeah, he looks horrible these days. Let me ask you a question. Now, you said earlier that you had trouble publishing the book because all the publishers, or they're political hacks as well, they're all controlled by the parties. But did you ever contact...
I started looking for a publisher a year ago, yeah.
Well, did you ever talk to Roger Stone?
Never did. You know, I don't actively go after celebrities or people who are on the speaking tour or anything like that. No, I never did.
Well, Roger Stone just published that book about the Clintons' war on women. And two of his writers, Robert Morrow and St. John Hunt, are both friends of the show. They both come on the show quite a bit. But they didn't. Did they?
Think they might be able to help me, Dad?
Yeah, I know they would. Okay, now what about? Yeah, I think we can get this thing up published in 24 hours. But I think they would love to get this out.
That would be great. You know, I kind of relied on two people that volunteered. One who had written 7 books, and he's a very nice gentleman. He's, I guess you'd say, not famous, but he is. He's out there in the D.C. area. Lives in Fairfax, Virginia, and his assistant is. She stays involved. They have a publication. It's for the Catholics, and off air, I could tell you more about them, but I know they probably want to remain in the background. But they were using his literary agent to try to shop for me.
Well, but for this book,
I appreciate that because
but for the book, The Clintons' War on Women by Roger Stone, no one contacted you to participate in that book.
No. It's so funny. There was a woman that did a book called something about their lives. And I guess that was written maybe while I was in China. And a friend emailed me and said, did they interview you for this book? But they quote you throughout the book. And that angered me a little bit because, you'd like to say it from your own words rather than let them piece articles together. Now, and that's what this woman had done. I can't think of her name. And it was about Bill Clinton. I think it came out right after either his big seller or Hillary's first big seller, and it was their lives, and it was about the women who had been. We were all bimbos. We were called bimbos.
Right. Now what about radio? What about radio?
You can call me. Excuse me. What?
Yeah. What about radio?
We like to talk, don't we, Ed?
What about radio interviews? How many times have you been interviewed on the radio about this topic?
Let me think. One other time.
Okay.
One other time. No, I don't seek out interviews. There was a guy in Little Rock that I trusted, Doc Washburn. He actually took my place on KARN radio. As I take my place, I had been on radio when I came back from living in the New Jersey area, and went on as a guest on the show. And the next day, the manager called and said, "How would you like to be on radio?" And I said, "Well, sounds good. I need some money." He said, "Well, it doesn't pay well, but I think you'll have a good time. You'll enjoy it." And so I took over this radio show once a day. I think I had 2 hours. But then I had to quit to run for mayor of my hometown. And when that was over and I had to deny that I was a lesbian, nobody in Arkansas wanted me to be on their radio station. In those days, the word lesbian was unknown and certainly never spoken in social circles.
Let me ask you this. Let me get an idea of the chronological order. Was the affair with Bill Clinton, was that before the radio show and before you ran for mayor and all that, or was it after?
It was during the radio show, and when I told him that I had quit the radio show in order to run for mayor of my hometown because I had moved a steam locomotive out of the park with the help of the Southern Pacific Railroad. That's when he told me that I was stupid. That's when he insulted me and said, "You're stupid. You know nothing about politics. That race has already been won. The gal who's running on the Democratic ticket already has it sewed up. You're wasting your time." And that's when I showed him the door. Well, you know, there's an arrogance to some people when they think they know more about a subject just because they've been involved in it.
How did you come to meet Clinton?
When I was going through my divorce in 1972, I hired an attorney who was also a state senator of the state of Arkansas. His name was Mutt Gibson. And he said, "You know, it's going to be difficult for me to try this case because your husband's from a prominent family and he's got 8 lawyers and there's only one of me. And I'm going to suggest they're going to drive you crazy. And I want to get you out of town for a while. And I'm going to hire you to be a Senate aide. And that'll take you out for at least 8 weeks." And he said, "I think it'll improve your confidence. And who knows, maybe it will get you a job so that when you get divorced, you're going to have a job. And you can meet some people that might help you in that pursuit." So I did. Had a friend whose daughter had an apartment for rent because she was going away as an exchange student. It worked out very well. So I rented her apartment. And I met Bill. He was single at the time. He was just venturing into politics. He was there to shake hands and grin and go to the parties and rub elbows with the lobbyists and all the politicians. He had an afro. He was cute. He wasn't handsome, but he had a sparkle. There was something about Bill, and you'll hear this over and over. He has a way of making you just feel warm and cozy, and he makes you feel like he's just the most excited person that could come into your life.
Well, give me an idea. How old were you at the time, and how old was he?
He was 7 years younger than me. At the time, I was 30. My divorce came through in 34. I was 33. So he was 26.
Okay. And did he seem like a really ambitious guy?
No, I don't think politicians ever seem ambitious. They're a little bit like gangsters. They're
right.
They kind of like to, rub elbows with other gangsters so they can get the lay of the land, and they begin to, talk the talk and walk the walk. And that's the way Bill was. Bill was like a chameleon. He can just take on all of the attributes of politicians. He learned quickly. But, Bill had not had a lot of experience with women. And Bill was pretty much a straight arrow at the parties. We danced together some. We talked about music. It was all very mundane, nothing exciting. But then that was in 73, and when I got my divorce in 73. And then it was 10 years later when I decided that since I'd accomplished the feat of getting the steam engine out of the park with all the railroad officials, that why not have a Rail Historical Society for the state of Arkansas and get the steam engine activated, and people from all the world would come to ride behind the historic train, the historic steam engine. So I realized he was governor in the 10 years I hadn't seen him. So I went to the office in the Capitol, and I knew his secretary on site because she had also worked with other governors, and I just said, "Miss Moore, I'd like to see Bill Clinton." She said, "Well, he's on the golf course right now, honey, but he'll check back in, and I'll just give him your number. Where are you going to be?" I gave her my phone number because I had a condo in Little Rock by this time, and she said, "I'll make sure he calls you, hon." And 2 or 3 hours later, I got a call from Bill. And he said, "I'm going to stay at the club and have dinner with these guys, and let me just drop by your place. Now, where are you living? And I told him, and he said, well, that's right next to Reservoir Park. I can just get my driver to drop me off there if you tell me which place is yours. And he said, well, leave the gate open and the light on. And that's what I did. And that's when we started.
Well, did you think when he was coming over that anything was romantic was going to happen?
Oh, I was a big girl by then. Yes. There was a possibility. You know, a lot of water had gone under the dam. And I'm sure that in my mind, I didn't plot and plan it, but I did want this project that I had, and I had all the paperwork there. I had photos. I had the plan. I didn't just go empty-handed and say, you know, can you make this happen for me, Bill?
Right.
No, I didn't do that. I had all. It was going to be a business. If he'd been in the office that day, I would have gone in his office and thrown out the plans and the proposal and created the whole idea.
So this was going to be a money-making project for you.
I was going to be the director. See, I was creating my own job.
Gotcha, I understand.
And because I knew how to contact the officials of the railroad, I knew how we could get all these buildings, these old depots that were sitting idle, the cabooses, the trains, all those. I knew how we could pull it all together because I'd learned by doing. And development had been part of my background. Fundraising had been part of my background. And communicating was also a big part of my background. So I was confident I could do this.
Okay, so now at that point, he was about 36 and you were 43?
No. Let's see. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, 10 years, you said. Okay, good. So now he was married.
Time passes so fast. Oh, frightening.
I know. But he was married at that point, right?
He was married to Hillary, and I think Chelsea was about 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, what about a lot of people think that maybe...
He was married. Yes, I did.
A lot of people think that maybe Hillary isn't Bill's kid, that it could be Hubble Martin's, Webster Hubble's kid.
Webb Hubble.
Yeah, Webb Hubble. What do you think?
You know, a lot of people have asked me. They felt that different people have tried different approaches. Do I have an opinion about that? I think there's a chance that it could be, but if she, it was an accident because I don't think anyone in the Rose Law Firm really found her attractive enough to have an office encounter. But the child looks just like him.
Right.
I'll say that.
Now, did you ever meet? Have you ever met Webb Hubble?
Oh, yes. In fact, he called and threatened me when I was having my radio show because I was talking about I had lost money with E.F. Hutton. And I never played the stock market. It was just something we didn't do at my house, so I would never have been in the habit of it. But when I came back from New Jersey, I had $40,000 that I really wanted to see if I could make it grow for me. And another Miss Arkansas's husband was in bonds and securities, and he encouraged me to invest at E.F. Hutton with a fellow named Ken Prince. So I went there, never done anything like this. And the guy said, oh, you know, your money's going to grow, and I'm going to keep you. I'm going to send you these weekly updates. And you could have told me that he was buying China and would be cutting off a piece of it and sending it to me in the mail. And I probably would have said, well, if that's the way to make money, let's do it. For about 6 months, I kept getting these little updates from him. You know, they weren't handwritten love notes. They were just these little statements that said he had purchased so much of this and then he'd sold it the next day.
Right.
And what he was doing was churning my account. Well, I didn't know anything about stocks. I didn't know anything about that. But I had an old boyfriend that was also in investments. And I had lunch with him one day, and I showed him all these little, I guess you'd say, printouts that I received every week. And he said, oh, my God, Sally, he's churning your account. He's making a percentage off of every time he churns your account. You're losing money, but he's making money. And all of a sudden, my money at $40,000 had gotten down to $19,000. So I said, what do I do? He says, you get an attorney, and the attorney will contact the, what is it?
SEC.
Exchange Commission. Security and Exchange Commission, and I only recouped $26,000 out of that $40,000. And Ken Prince was slapped on the hands, and his license were removed for 6 months. 6 months. And I, for the rest of my life, had lost, the difference between $26,000 and $40,000. And so I was on the radio. I'd done some research, and they call them bond daddies because that's their practice. And they're crooks. They are crooks with a license to steal. So I was on the radio, and I was saying, the term came from Memphis years ago, and there was a group of them, and I was doing this. Well, I was about to go to a commercial, and my director came in, and he said, put on 2 commercials. We got to talk. I stepped out in the hall, and he said, Webb Hubble from the Rose Law Firm just called. He said, if you mention E.F. Hutton one time, if you refer to your own personal experience, not only will he sue me, he will sue you, and we're going to be in major trouble. Well, I had no intention. I'm not that dumb that I would mention myself and talk about my own personal experience over the radio. But anyway, the next day, Webb Hubble came to the station to warn me personally that he would sue me. He said, I'll take everything you've got, sister. This is a big guy. He played football, big, ugly guy. And when I later repeated this to Bill said, oh, he's just a big fat, and he said some, expletives.
So Bill did not like Webb Hubble. They didn't get along together.
Not at all. He said he's a doofus who just happened to marry well.
Okay.
And he said they tolerate him at the Rose Law Firm.
Now, when you were dealing with Bill around that time when he was 36 and you were 43, now there's a lot of people that make allegations about the Mena airport and all the drug smuggling going on there in Arkansas. Was there any indications that Bill... What's that?
I didn't know anything about that. Later, a fellow from the Daily Telegraph in London made it this lifelong ambition to research that. And he almost got shot, and can you believe he lost his passport? I mean, physically, they took it away from him. The authorities took it away from him and banned him from returning to America.
I believe
he got too close to the problem. His name was Evans Pritchard.
But was there any indication? Did you notice any kind of indication of Bill being involved in that kind of stuff?
Of course.
Okay.
His brother was really heading the organization. His brother Roger was into drugs anyway.
Right.
But he was the one that connected all the dots. When Bill came to my house the first time, he didn't do drugs. But every time after that, he was smoking marijuana, and he always had a little packet. I called it his evening bag, and it had. You see, I don't do drugs. I don't even do pharmaceutical drugs. But I watched him, and I'm looking at the very table in my living room where he did it. He pushed everything away, rolled out this little kind of a parchment, and he had a little straw, little short straw, and he put the white powder out there, and he sniffed it up his nostril. And just a big smile on his face, like he was doing something big time, like nobody else could do. Of course, he invited me. He said, come on over and try it. And I said, nope. Scared to death of drugs, can't do it. I don't need any kind of artificial high. Oh, you feel so good, you feel so stimulated. I didn't need to be stimulated. In fact, all I could remember was it was illegal. If someone had broken down my front door, I would have been arrested. Bill wouldn't have been the one to be arrested. It was in my house.
Let me ask you a question. I have a couple of questions.
Yes. Yeah, so you tell me.
Did you ever meet Roger Clinton?
Twice.
Okay, and
both times he was completely high. He was a druggie out of control. I think he did drugs to survive. He was that hooked. one time he came by to drop something off at my house. He came by the front door, and Bill cursed him because of it. He said, man, you're not supposed to come around this front door. If somebody recognizes you, and then they'll put two and two together, you're here and I'm here, and, not good for us, bro. So I didn't see what he slipped him, but Bill put it in his pocket. I assumed it was drugs.
Now, what about a lot of the other women that Bill's been involved in? They talk about the state troopers, like running interference for him. Did he have state troopers with him when he was visiting you?
Oh, yes, they drive him everywhere. Or they drove him everywhere when he was governor. He had his own chauffeurs, and they were the ones that turned on him because he told them when he got to D.C., he was going to take him to the White House with him. And they're smart. They realized soon on when the big nomination came and, Bill was running for the presidency, he ignored them, wouldn't accept their calls. He treated them like yesterday's lunch. So that's when they turned on him and began saying, well, we're going to give the names of some of the women we drove him to see. And they mentioned me. Between 83 and 92, my life was not focused on Bill Clinton. In fact, I tried to put it behind me. The hardest thing was forgiving myself because I was impulsive and I did make a mistake. And believe me, it was not my modus operandi to go after married men. I had fun, but the younger men in my life that I met when I was running, when I was exercising, when I was trying to accomplish my goals, I had enough activity, and they were all single. I didn't need to worry about that. But more than that, I was focused on my future. So Bill Clinton was just, he was not even going to be in this book, in fact, until one day I was writing, and I was looking at an older article about when I admitted to Ambrose Evans Pritchard that Bill had worn this black nightgown of mine and danced around the room showing off, playing his sax. And I had a full-length mirror, and he was so involved in looking at himself, he just thought he looked so cute. And Ambrose printed that. And for years afterward, the only thing people could remember about me with Bill Clinton was that he wore my black nightgown. And I guess it was funny. At the time, it was funny. But, of course, so many bad things happened when Hillary got involved. I couldn't even remember one funny thing that had happened. And I wanted to put it all behind me. But then I thought, it's my book. And by damn, someone needs to hear my side of the story. I was not this loose slut that was out there just trying to hook up with all these married men. I was as important as Bill Clinton at that point. I'd seen enough, done enough, that I felt good about myself. And he could have said no. He wasn't going to come. He could have said, meet me in my office, and kept this very businesslike. But he knew when he came to my place what was probably going to happen. And I accept full responsibility. When I opened the door, I knew there was a possibility that we might go upstairs to the bedroom. I might not even make it upstairs to the bedroom.
How long did this sexual relationship with Bill Clinton go on between you and Bill?
Started in August, and it ended, as I said, the night that I told him I was going to run for the Republican ticket for mayor of Pine Bluff. That was the only ticket left. This woman who was 300 pounds, had not graduated from high school, had already chosen the Democratic ticket because she was put there. She was a prop. They could manipulate her. And she'd been on the city council.
So this was like 3 or 4 months.
It was 3 or 4 months we were together. Just a lot of time. We were probably together, I'd say 13, 14 times.
Okay, now how did this become public? How did the story get out?
The state troopers. They told the Arkansas Gazette. And as I said, I'd forgotten about it, and I'd gone back to college at the request of my old college, which had been a girls' school, and then it became a university. And they invited me back after I finished the wall. And they said, we'd love for you to come and help us in admissions, and we'll give you this degree. Everything's free, where you live, your food. We'll give you a stipend. And I needed that because I couldn't go home to my mother. So, long story short, I was at college. I'd been there, I guess I'd been there 5 weeks when the phone rang, and it was this reporter from the Arkansas Gazette, and he said, Miss Purdue, thought we'd notify you. We're writing a story on you tomorrow. Well, I assumed it was about the Great Wall. And he said, do you have any comments? And I said, well, you give me an idea of how you're writing the story, and I'll comment. And he started off with, well, State Trooper Patterson said today that Sally Miller Purdue lived at Andover Square, and she used to have sex with Bill Clinton 2 or 3 nights a week. And that was the end for me. I said, no comment, hung up.
Did you call Bill right away?
No. I wouldn't have even known how to reach Bill at that point.
Because he was in the White House then.
But what? No. He was running for the president at that point.
Now, this Patterson guy, did you know him?
I knew him briefly as a state trooper, yes. I knew Ferguson and Patterson because they would alternate driving Bill to my place. And, you know, sometimes they'd actually walk on the patio and knock on the door. We didn't have cell phones in those days, so it was amazing. You had to get out of your car and go on the door, and it was a different lifestyle.
I remember. So now what happens next? The stuff hits the fan, I guess you could say, right?
The world came apart, you know. That's when my world came apart.
Right.
The college fired me because the Democrats, they called me into their office, and they said, Missy, you're being fired today, honey. They were both smoking cigars. That's kind of interesting when you think about Monica and the cigars, because no one around me had ever smoked cigars. And they were celebrating because the Democratic Party, this is exactly what they said. Missy, you're fired today. Honey, we're sorry, but the Democratic Party came through for us. We got $1 million, and if you can find some of your Republican friends who give us $1.5 million, we'll reinstate you. And I was wiped out. I couldn't imagine. Everything I had was right there at the college. My cat and me. You won't be able to live on campus anymore, but we will let you keep getting your degree as long as you don't cause any ruckus. Well, you can imagine all the students and the professors, how they treated me at this point. I was like leftover garbage.
Did you ever speak out in the press at that time?
No. And I was pressured. I had my daughter's friend. I had lived in Atlanta at one time and made friends with the WSB crew. And there was a guy there that my daughter had dated briefly. And I'd rather not say his name, but I called him and I said, look, if I can get the money together and fly to Atlanta, could you just have a video camera there and let me tell you what I can about Bill Clinton? It was nothing. And I said, it was no big deal. And he said, of course I could. I said, I just don't want it to go on air. You just take a video of it, and then let me get back to St. Charles and figure out how I'm going to make enough money to live, and just air it. And he said, well, I'll talk to my boss, and I'm sure we can just get your plane fare over here. I said, nope, I don't want to be obligated. I don't want it to appear that you've bought me. So he said, well, however you want to do it, let's make a date and a time. So I flew to Atlanta. We sat down on the patio of WSB with a cameraman, and he just would ask me a few questions like, how long did it last, and did you know he was married, and this and that and the other. And I said, and believe me, I have no interest in trying to sabotage his campaign. I have no interest in trying to make money. I have no interest in trying to put my face in front of a camera, and I don't want to pose for Playboy. And he said, okay. And after it was over with, I was there a day. I flew back to St. Charles the next morning. And I waited because he said, I'll call you when we're going to air it. And we'll only, I think it was a 15-minute clip. He didn't call. So a week later, I called him. And I said, what is the status? And he said, I really hate to tell you this. He said, I'm not the boss. The Clintons found out about it, and Bill Clinton agreed to have a free town hall meeting here. The studios of WSB would not be negotiated with the other television stations. It would, and in exchange, he wanted the video. The original had to make sure there were no copies. And my boss said, great, be wonderful for us, good publicity. So the next time I got a phone call was from the Sally Jesse Raphael show. And they wanted to know if they could fly me to New York and find out my side of the story. And I was angry. And I said, by damn, yes, I'm going to get this out one way or the other. And once again, they said, okay, we'll send you a ticket. And I said, no, I'm going to figure out a way to get up there without your money. And long story short, I borrowed the money, flew up there, and I didn't know that they were setting me up. There was a gal that called me in the meantime and said she was a writer, and she would like to be in the audience, and she would like to take notes, and then maybe she could work with me on a segment of her book that she was going to put out. And it was about the underhanded tactics of politicians. Well, what I didn't know is who it took didn't.
Yeah.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I think we're coming up to a break.
Okay.
Yeah, we're here with Sally Miller, the author of the soon-to-be published book, Beauty Queen, Let No Deed Go Unpublished. Sally, when can we expect the book to be published?
I want the book out by the first week in May.
Okay.
And if there's no publisher to pick it up, I'm going to figure out a way to borrow the money and publish it myself.
Okay, we're going to talk after the show about that, okay? We'll be right back after these messages with more of Sally Miller, Beauty Queen, with great Wall of China walker, I guess, a runner you could call her, ex-girlfriend of Bill Clinton, and we're going to get into the whole story about how she was terrorized and threatened by the Clintons to keep her mouth shut, but she's speaking out on the Opperman Report. We'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome. All clear. Are you there?
Hey, Danny. Oh, boy. Okay, well, we're waiting for our guest to come back. Let's see if... Okay. Maybe we should sing a little song here while we wait. If Danny can hear me, you can play your ads, Danny, so my audience can hear it too. Yeah, he's not there.
Okay, you want me to turn you up now?
Yeah. Turn up your stuff. Your commercials and stuff. So people.
All right.
Yeah.
Gun.
There you go.
You got a gun, you don't have to work out. I ain't working out. I ain't jogging. You don't need no gun control. You know what you need? We need some bullet control. We need to control the bullets. That's right. I think all bullets cost $5,000. You know why? Because if a bullet costs $5,000, only cost $5,000. Man, I would blow your head off if I could afford it. I'm gonna give me another job. I'm gonna start saving some money, and you a dead man.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs and artillery batteries not included.
No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, We are American Freedom Radio, American Freedom Radio.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. And just want to thank all my sponsors that keep the show alive, Pacific West Bamboo and MichiganMushrooms.net, Miguel LaSala, the author of Rodeo of Doom, and StrawmanMusic.com, and the good old New World Mexican Women. We're here today with Sally Miller, author of Beauty Queen, Let No Deed Go Unpublished. Sally.
I'm still laughing. I'm laughing at that ad, the guy and the bullets and the guns.
That's Chris Rock. Yeah, I met Chris Rock. I met Chris Rock one time at the Comedy Cellar, I think it was, in New York City. And as a matter of fact, I think he had a lot in common with Bill Clinton that night, if you know what I'm saying. Okay. No other comment.
You don't need any other comment.
I was in pretty bad shape myself.
I'm curious. Do you have your gun with you, Ed?
No. I try and keep a low profile. Now, let me ask you a question. Did anybody ever contact you trying to do damage control, like offering you money for your silence before the threat started?
They offered me a job.
Okay, good.
In Lindenwood, after I'd lost my job, suddenly this guy comes in my life named Ron Tucker. He was from Marion, Illinois. I knew nothing about the man, didn't even know where Marion, Illinois was. He told me he worked for a mining company in Kentucky, right over the border. And I later had a call from his boss, who said the man was obsessed and insane, that he had overheard him on the phone with his political pals, and they were plotting how to scare me and how to do as much damage as they could. Well, as it turned out, of course, the back window of my my Jeep was shot out, but they didn't shoot it from the outside. Someone had actually gone inside, sat on the seat, and pointed the gun out the back window, shattered it that way.
Well, we'll stop there for a second. How did they get into the Jeep? Did they jimmy the lock, or was it unlocked?
No, it wasn't unlocked. It was locked. I was in class. It was one night. And I had to park in the far parking lot, which kind of was at the bottom of a hill, not very much lighting. And I wasn't comfortable doing that, but it was the only place I could park to get to class. So I did it, and I made sure the car was locked. And when I got back, the car was locked, and there were 2 shotgun shells on the seat, my front seat. It was an 85 Jeep Cherokee. I looked around. Of course, I felt like I was probably being watched from all sides. I tried to remain calm, and I just drove to the St. Charles police and had them check out the car, and they said, well, apparently someone else has a key. They took the shells, they checked the car out, and I was scared beyond words. I never had a gun. I had no reason to have a gun. It was not something that I felt like I needed. And then the next night, I had to go to another class, and when I came back, I noticed something was strange about the car. I can't tell you why. It was just looked too open. There was too much light coming in from the back because there was no tinted window. And I looked down and I saw the glass on the underneath part of the ground, and I went over and unlocked the car, and there were more shotgun shells on the seat. And I turned around, and sure enough, the window had been shot out.
Okay, did you call the cops?
I drove to the St. Charles Police Department again.
Okay.
And they told me, they said, you need to hire security. You should never be alone. I was living, that's pretty bad. When they fired me, I had no place to go. And a student invited me to stay in his one-bedroom apartment. He had a couch. And he said, you can stay there. I'm not home much. He said, I work in the cafeteria and then I have another job. And he said, you can stay in my place. And so I did. I had no place to go. I had no money. I ended up going to the government office applying for welfare. But I'd found this little part-time job working with adults with disabilities. It paid $5.30 an hour. And the welfare people said that I made $2.30 too much a week. So they couldn't give me money, but they could give me $30 in food stamps, $30 a month to eat on. Well, it bought cat food, and it bought me, milk and a loaf of bread every week. And the guy worked in the cafeteria, and he'd bring food out and put it in the refrigerator, and like cheese and things that I could put on my bread. I'm not exaggerating, Ed. I promise you. I'd almost reached the bottom. I was pretty far down at the bottom by this point. Now, and then a guy in St. Louis called me and said, I've heard about your plight. Could you use $50 a week? Because if you can, I'd like to invite you to be on my radio show for 1 hour a week. That's all the space I have. And it was WG, I can't remember the call letters, but anyway, it was in St. Louis. It wasn't KMOX. It wasn't the big station, but it was a WGYN. I believe those were the call letters. And, of course, I went on, and, of course, everybody wanted to talk about the Clinton scandal, and they wanted to talk about me being a fallen woman. And one woman was going to call the Miss Arkansas Committee and tell them to take away my crown. And I laughed. I said, after all these years, you think they really care about Miss Arkansas? I said, my father was the one who provided the clothes and the car and the gasoline for the year I spent as Miss Arkansas. They only cared about me going to Atlantic City and see if I could win Miss America. And when I didn't win Miss America, of course, they were through with me. They were working on the next year's pageant by that time. But then the calls come in, that Miss Pink Tomato is going to be crowned, and they want her crowned by Miss Arkansas, and I have to cut her a ribbon for a new building, and Miss Arkansas is supposed to do that. And but it was funny how people acted. And one of my callers, what I thought was so funny, one caller said, you do know that all of your shows are being taped by the Clintons so that they can sue you. And I said, that's fine, whatever they want to do. And she said, well, you know that I'm going to report back to them anything you say that I think is a lie or illegal. I don't know where people get their arrogance.
I get those kind of calls too all the time. Okay, I'm not worried. Yeah. Oh, are you kidding me? Yeah, I get. Okay, don't worry about that. Let me ask you this. Now, no one in the Republican Party, these Republican dirty tricksters and these kind of guys, none of them contacted you and said, "Hey, we'll put you on the payroll and we'll take care of you."
Honey, the Republican Party was, they're such stuffed shirts, and they were scared to death. They didn't want to lose their They didn't want to dirty their white shirts. But I did contact them in St. Louis, and I said that I needed an attorney because I didn't see how in the world they could get by with firing me and taking money. They bragged about it. It was not like it was a secret. And how I was being sabotaged from all directions. And I said, I need help.
Right.
I've never been, I can ask for money. I can raise money for crippled children. I can raise money for Alcoholics Anonymous. But I have never, ever attempted to raise money for myself. I know there's a GoFundMe, but someone said, well, if you need money publishing your book, you should go on GoFundMe. I said I couldn't do it. I guess it's a pride thing that I know there are much worthier causes than me, and I just could not reach that level. I couldn't do it. Maybe I should. Maybe it's just my own warped mindset. I don't know. But anyway, so I went to the Republican building, the offices of the Republican Party for Missouri. And they told me that a fellow named Paul Ground was an attorney that could help me, but he could not, it would be on a limited basis because his partners in the law firm were Democrats, and they didn't want to get involved. They would let Paul, as a Republican, help me on a very limited basis. So I sought out Paul Ground. He called the college trying to get me reinstated, and they were blatant, and they admitted to him, if you Republicans can give us another $500,000, another $1.5 million to match what the Dems did, we'll reinstate her. We'll let her come back and live on campus.
Okay, Sally, let me ask you this. When you went down to the Republican headquarters to look for help, did you have an appointment, or you just went down there and just walked in again like you did with Clinton?
I just walked in.
Okay.
I just walked in.
And when they were going to put you in touch with this lawyer, did he help you?
If nothing more than he kind of ran interference. I guess that's what I want to say. He was not able to get me. He couldn't go to the Republican Party and say, let's gather $1.5 million to get this woman back in there. He should have. Republicans should have been willing to do that, but they're scaredy cats. They were weak.
But they wouldn't hire you a press agent and then say, okay, we're going to publish a book for you. You hire your press agent and put you out there on a tour and you make money. We'll put you in hotel rooms. Nothing like that.
No. But this is before the book. This is long before the book.
But at the time, they didn't say, okay, we'll hire a ghostwriter for you to put the story out?
No.
No one ever brought up that subject. No one thought of it.
You know, Ed, no one ever. I had to be the mind and the developer behind all this. The only thing Paul Ground did was try to get me reinstated in the college, which I didn't want to go back there. They were crooks.
Right.
The president of the college had been written up in the Wall Street Journal as being a crook. But the board of the college didn't care because he attracted students. And he developed, it was a very prestigious girls' school, Lindenwood College for Women. And he turned it into a, same-sex dorms and just, what do I want to say? Not same-sex. You know what I'm talking about.
Co-ed.
Intermingling in the dorms.
Co-ed.
Yeah, co-ed dorms.
Now, let me...
He even allowed alcohol in the dorms. He allowed all kinds of crazy things. But he attracted students. So what can you do? You can't fight City Hall. But at just the right time, when I had the Jeep shot out, I lost my job, I was getting ridiculed. Geraldo calls me. Let me tell you, you really reached the bottom of the barrel when Geraldo himself picks up the phone and says, well, you really blew my staff off, and you told them you weren't going to come on my show, so I'm going to talk to you face to face. Are you coming on my show or not? No, I'm not. Well, he said, you must be a liar then. You probably lied about this Bill Clinton thing, and now then you're too ashamed to be seen in public. He's made a permanent enemy. I despise him because he insulted me. He has no respect for women. When I went on the Sarah Jesse Raphael show, they didn't, and I thought I could trust her. Isn't that stupid? The American media is not to be trusted because I've experienced their low-life tactics.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences. Yeah. Now, let me tell you something. Now, you were telling a story about how you were in the Sally Jesse Raphael show, and they put a writer in the audience or something like that. We were just telling that story when we went to the break.
I was on the Sally Jesse Raphael show, and they filled the audience full of the I didn't know that it was the New York was the location for the Democratic National Convention. I was racing for my life. I was trying to find enough food to keep my cat and me, satisfied for one day, enough money to get gasoline in my Jeep to go look for a job, enough money to get me to this little part-time job I had where I had to change men's adult diapers, that kind of stuff. And here I went on the stage in New York, and the audience was completely packed. Every seat was a Democratic Party member. They were there. They were there to make me look and feel stupid. And I looked nice. I wore a nice suit. I was very professionally dressed. And I was acting like a lady. My father would have been very proud of me. But they weren't acting like gentlemen. And when Sally Jesse Raphael said, so do you plan to pose for Playboy after you appear on my show? I said, why would I? Well, because you're trying to sell a story. I said, I haven't made a dime. I've lost my job. I've lost money. She insulted me the whole time. She even so much as had a friend of mine up there. She'd flown her in from Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I didn't know she was going to be on the show. And she was a lifetime friend. We started in grade school together. And she said, well, do you believe Sally? She said, well, I believe her, but I never did see her with Bill. And she said, well, who are you going to vote for? I'm going to vote for Bill.
Oh, really?
And anything to make me stupid, anything. So I lost a friendship over that. But then she had Rita Jenrette, who had been a Playboy pharaoh. I didn't know Rita Jenrette, but she said to me, sounds to me like you just wish that you could be where I was, and that's in the fold of Penthouse or Playboy. And I said, no, I'm not interested in that. I had just completed the run of the Great Wall of China. And she said, oh, that's a joke. That's a lie, too, isn't it? And then they went in the audience, and they had people come up to the mic, and this one guy stood up, and he said, hey, Sally, I remember you at the University of Arkansas, but that was when you had brown hair. Of course, I was a blonde at this point. And I thought back later, and I thought what I should have said is, I'm sorry I don't recognize you, but I remember now you had hair at that time. This guy was bald. But I'm not a cutter. I don't believe in that. I just tried to maintain, the lady life. But a year later, while I was in China, I got an email from a friend who said, Sally Jesse Raphael apologized to you on the air today. She said, Sally, if you're out there, within the sound of my voice, I want to tell you that I apologize for doubting you on the Bill Clinton story. I found out since then that you told the truth.
What kinds of threats and intimidation was there?
It's hard to tell. What other kind of threats and intimidation?
Yeah.
Well, I told you about the Ron Tucker guy that came and offered me the $60,000 a year job in the government, but I wouldn't have to go to work. But if I didn't take the job offer, that they knew where I ran every day, and who knows, someone might just break my pretty little legs. I got this kind of stuff all the time. It was, I had a lawyer in he said he was an attorney, named Eric from St. Louis. He was a tall, good-looking guy. He was married, and he began writing me love notes. And he was trying to set me up because, and he later actually told me that he was hired by the Democratic Party in Arkansas so that they could prove that I was nothing more than a pickup, and that any man could come on to me, and then I would climb in bed with him like I was some street whore. So I didn't trust anyone at this point. Absolutely did not trust anyone.
Wait. I was a little distracted there for a second. You're saying that they hired someone to try and pick you up and insert themselves into your life in a romantic way?
Yes, and he showed me the recorder. He had a very small recorder in his pocket. And after I received these love notes, and it was difficult to call me because I was moving around. I got to the point where I didn't even know where I was going to be staying, so I didn't have a phone number to give out. And as far as mail, I was picking up my mail back on campus because it was the only mailbox I had. And they still let me use the mailbox. The woman who was in charge of the mail service on campus was probably the only friend I had. She was a very old woman, and she was in her 70s, and she told me before I left campus, and I went by to pick up my mail, she said, I promise you this, if you get any mail here, I'm going to keep it. No one will ever know. You just come by sometime and pick it up. And I would go by there, and sometime I wouldn't have anything, but then these Eric letters started coming. And he was telling me he'd seen me on the Sally Jesse Raphael show, and he loved my legs. He wanted to caress my feet and my ankles and all, help me put my shoes on and off, and he could help me shower. He could be the bench that I needed to sit on when I was in the shower to shave my legs. This may be more than your listeners want to hear, but this is just the kind of low-down tactics that were used on me. So I thought, okay, I'm going to beat this guy to his own game. I had a little recorder. It was given to me by my daughter, and she lived in Atlanta. She sent it to me, and I loaded it with batteries, and I was prepared. Well, the guy was not bad looking. If he'd been single and if I were interested in dating, would I have gone out with him? No, he was not that interesting. But by this point, I had no interest in men at all. Young, old, it didn't matter, rich, whatever. So we met at this bar in St. Charles, and I had my recorder on, and I didn't know, but I assumed he probably had one right. And as we talked and all, and I started just nailing him to the cross. I said, I know your game. I know exactly what you're up to. I've had this same plot plan worked on me. So they're not very smart. They keep using the same playbook. And he eventually, he finally, I guess you'd say, just was worn out. He pulled his tape recorder out, and he said, you want me to remove the tape? And I said, I pulled mine out. And I said, it doesn't matter. And he just came forth, and he said, well, he named the guy in the Democratic Party in Arkansas, and I just happened to have once had a television show with his wife, and her name was Judy Pryor, and she married this younger guy named Bill Tice, and I think that was his last name. Anyway, I knew the name. He said, well, he had called him and asked him. I think they'd gone to law school together, and he said he wanted him to do him a favor, and he said, I want you to approach this woman. I want you to write her love notes. I want you to prove that she's a tramp, basically. And he said, I couldn't do it. He said, I don't know. There's something about you're so sincere standing here, and I feel like a dirty dog. And before I left, I got to tell him what I thought of him.
Now was he like a private investigator, this guy, or just some guy they hired off the street? What was his occupation?
He said he was an attorney.
I was an attorney.
And he showed me a card that said he was an attorney.
Okay.
And he had gone to law school with this guy in Arkansas. And this is the story. And I thought it was interesting that I knew the guy in Arkansas and I knew his wife.
Ah.
So the only reason I came back to Arkansas when I finally came back here was because of the medical center. We have a fabulous medical center, and my daughter, who was the first female journal clerk on the United States Senate floor, had started having seizures, and there was a world-renowned seizure doctor here, and I moved back, and she stayed with me with her 2 children, and I was teaching special education, and I made room in my house for them to stay so that she could see this number one guy from Israel about seizures. That's the only reason I came back. I never planned. I have no interest in socializing with these people, have no interest in even being neighborly. I found a house that I liked, and I was still working, and I could afford. You probably have had more than you needed to know from me, but I've lived this life, and I can tell you it's very tiring, and it's not at all what I would like to have as my life memory. But I don't intend, my book is not going to end on a victim note, because I'm not going to be a victim. You don't know this, Ed, but I sing pretty damn well, okay? And I never got to get on the stage like I was meant to do and have my big concert. So that's going to be my aim after the book comes out. I'm going to finish my life with a song.
Let me ask you this. Now, with people like Monica Lewinsky, and I've become friendly with Paula Jones and stuff, like they had a lot of stuff happen to them, like their cat was killed and things like that, anything like that, and suspicious things.
I lost jobs.
Okay.
They didn't go for the animals, though. At that time, I didn't have a big dog and 3 cats. I was moving around, I was fired from the college, and then I went to China for 10 years. I stayed in China so I could miss all the subpoenas for the Paula Jones case and the subpoenas for the Bill Clinton impeachment, all of those things.
They did try and subpoena you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They even took subpoenas to the United States Senate and tried to get my daughter to help them deliver them to me. He said, well, you'll have a heck of a chance getting her back over here. She's in China.
You didn't have any trouble getting a visa and stuff like that to get into China?
I already had a visa because I'd been over there and done the wall. The Chinese people love me.
Right.
They love me because I revered their wall, and I traveled it. I was the first woman to do that, and I made friends with the Chinese people. I helped establish the first international radio show for the blind so they could hear the news, because these are people that were in the remote areas of China. And I went back and had a few that I had noted when I was on the Great Wall, and I went back and there were some disabled people. I was able to get them into Beijing and have jobs. They liked me because, I really care about other people. And if I have a way of getting something for me, then I should be able to get it for other people too. If I can get help for me, I should be able to get help for other people. That's kind of like.
Why are you doing this radio show today? Is it because you don't want Hillary to be reelected? To be reelected, to become elected?
Hillary. I sure as heck don't want Hillary as president. Let me tell you, she's the worst thing that could happen to this country. You tell me anything she's done for the American people. Anything. I can tell you a lot of things she's done against the American people. But what has Hillary done for America?
Well, we've all seen, her public life. But what can you tell us about her personal life that maybe Bill had talked to you about that would people could use to make a decision on who they want to vote for?
She's a drug addict.
Okay.
She doesn't like sex with her husband. She doesn't like children.
Okay, why do you say she doesn't like children?
Chelsea.
Why do you say she doesn't like children?
Because Bill told me she had several abortions. She didn't want Chelsea. She would have aborted Chelsea. But you know the problem? Bill was not making it in politics. He was governor, but then he wasn't reelected. They had advisors, political advisors. I'm sure they were universally famous. I don't know who they were. But they advised them that, first of all, Hillary better get the Clinton, as the Clinton name is her last name, not this Rodham. She insisted on being Hillary Rodham. She was a feminist. And she was damned and determined that she would not satisfy the people of Arkansas by having a name that was the same as her husband. She was standing up for her rights as a woman, her feminist movement woman. And they told her that, first of all, she's going to have to adopt the Clinton name, and she's going to have to start a family because people in Arkansas didn't believe in this independent woman stuff, and they wanted their political figures to be happily married, and happily married meant having children. That meant that you proved that the two of you had united and had a child.
But Bill Clinton told you that Hillary Clinton had several abortions?
Yeah, because I brought up the subject about everything. I said, I don't understand how you could be married to someone who's so cold. You know, and I mentioned the name situation, and I said, is she even good in bed? You know, if you've had any kind of pillow talk with someone, if you shared your body with them, you don't mind sharing their minds, too. It's just something you do. And I'm a talker. I used to interview people on the radio and on television. It's a natural thing. You know, Ed, you're the same way. You just want to ask questions.
Right.
You want to answer. You have a curious mind. That's how you find out about people. And I just said, she's so cold. Why in the world were you ever attracted to her? She's not even sexy. She's not even pretty. And he started talking. Bill likes to talk.
Yeah, I know.
He likes his mouth, period, okay? He has all of his activity is around his mouth. He is probably, in the book, I named the 3 most exciting kisses I've ever had. And kissing was real important to me growing up. It was.
Wait, let's not get off too far off the subject, because I really want to cover this thing about the abortions. Now, you're saying that Bill told you that she had abortions while they were married, or was it previous to their marriage?
She had abortions after they were married.
After they were married. How many?
Bill doesn't like to wear condoms. Why am I telling you all this? You're supposed to read this in the book.
No, well, it'll come. This will trust me.
Okay. Are you still going to read the book, Ed?
Yes.
Now, after all this confession?
I promise you.
It's so much more than just Bill. Okay, it's so much more than Bill, and it's so much more than Hillary. But what's pertinent now is the fact that that bitch thinks she deserves to be in the White House. Now, remember when she and Bill left the White House, how they destructed everything. They stole things. That wasn't Bill. I'm going to be honest with you. Bill is as fearful of Hillary as I was fearful of my mother.
Okay, one more question.
Tantrums.
One more question. What other? You said that she had a distaste for children. So besides the abortion, what other things did he tell you about that shows that she has a distaste for children?
She was invited many times to go to the children's colony in Conway, where they have children with disability, children that have cerebral palsy, people that are they have Mongolism, all the things that make people that don't have a heart nervous. And Bill himself said, you know, Hillary just doesn't like children. She doesn't want to be around children. They make her nervous. She's irritated about children. And he mentioned the invitation. He said, it's embarrassing when she gets all these invitations to go to the children's hospital to see about those children. They're trying to raise money, and they have telethons. And then he said the worst is she was going up to Conway to take part in this children's colony event, and halfway there she told the driver to turn around and take her back. She said, I don't want to see those crippled children. And half of those kids don't have a brain. Well, working with special ed children as I do, I took offense at that. You know yourself, when you have a child, you have no guarantee it's going to be perfect. But you love it, and you cherish it, and you protect it. But she didn't go up there because she would have been phony. And that's the main thing about Hillary. When she does go out and forces herself to go places she doesn't want to go, she's a phony. She's a phony. She has a phony laugh, and she has a phony presentation. She talks about women's rights, but she is all for aborting children. She supports that project 100%, even late-term abortion. She talks about it.
Now,
she's all for abortion.
Oh no, but the thing is, Sally, everybody knows she's in favor of abortion. But what people don't know is that you're telling us now is that she's had several abortions herself.
Said she had 2.
Okay, good. See, 2.
Several to me. Okay.
No, that's
several to me.
Good. That's news. That's news. That's big news. No one ever said that before. Now, what about, too, there's some stuff about her sexual preferences. What did Bill say about that to you?
She turned Bill on when she talked about that when they were dating. When I said, how could you be attracted? He said, well, you take a guy like me, and I don't like the idea of women being in bed together, and I want to watch. Well, I've heard enough men talk about that. But when he started talking about that, turned him on because Hillary, but she got tired of him asking her questions about it, and I assume she refused to bring any women into their living establishment so that he could watch. The only thing he told me that Hillary would take, she would do coke. She would take a few joints and smoke them. And then she would go to bed with Bill. That was the only time his word was pliable. And that conjures up, visions of, well, him being able to do what he wants to do. But he said she doesn't respond. He said are you sure we can do this? I'm sure this is not the children's hour.
No. So if you go beyond anything that I think you shouldn't be saying, I'll let you know for sure. We can always mark this as adult content, but we will get more airtime if we keep it PG.
Okay. Well, this is PG for me. He said making love to Hillary was like making love to a pile of sofa pillows. And he said, sometimes you're just desperate. And he laughed a few times. He said, you need to go home with me and give Hillary a few lessons. And then he said, well, no, I don't guess that'll work. Apparently the guy, I'm not accepting the fact that a married man needs to have a variety of women in his life. But I do know from experience that if you can't get satisfied at home, you do go looking elsewhere. It's a matter of pride, perhaps, with a man especially. He doesn't want to be rejected over and over and over. And then after a while, like he said, it doesn't matter because you're not turned on to her anyway.
Do you think they ever loved each other?
No. Hillary is not capable of love. Chelsea's a convenience. She makes them look like a family. Bill is a convenience because she was able to follow in his footsteps to get to D.C. She pushed. Now, Bill has a permanent handprint in his back, and that's Hillary's handprint. She's been pushing him since the day they met. If you saw pictures of Hillary back then, she could have never made it on her own. Bill was the outgoing, friendly, the good old boy, and she needed that. But she was the brains behind the operation. Bill Clinton would still be sitting in the governor's mansion, still going to the Capitol every day because the people of Arkansas loved him, and they would have kept electing him or re-electing him. But it was Hillary that wanted Washington. It was Hillary that wanted the presidency. And when he insulted her by having an affair with Monica in the Oval Office, under her nose, so to speak, I think she would have killed him if she could have. But she still needed him. And I'm sure they worked out a contract that said, I supported you and I got you where you were, buddy, and you are going to stay with me till the day you die because the next person that sits in the Oval Office is me. It's my turn. I deserve it.
Okay, Sally, I got a couple of important questions for you, okay? And they're seriously important questions because I'm going to get to something after this portion, okay, that you may not know about, okay? Now, you mentioned here in these notes Bill's foot fetish and his fantasies. So now, not because I'm a pervert or anything like that, but there's an important question. What were his kind of fantasies about and his foot fetish, if you can describe that?
I'll just touch on it barely because I still want you to read the book. I'll just kind of capsule it.
Okay.
Bill was raised by his mother. His mother was considered kind of a fun, nighttime kind of girl. And I don't need to put words out there. I think you get the idea.
No, I missed what you said. I was reading.
A lot.
Can you repeat that?
she dated a lot. She was considered a fun nighttime kind of girl.
Gotcha.
And she dated a lot. She went out a lot, and Bill, she wore ankle strap shoes. It all started because I had on a pair of ankle strap shoes when he came one night, and he said, I love those kind of shoes. My mama used to wear them. Ankle strap high heel shoes, cutouts. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And he said he used to sit on the floor, and his mama would unstrap her garter belt and pull her hose off, because we didn't have pantyhose in those days. And she certainly didn't have them. They just had single hose. And she would slip them off. He would slip them off. She just unloosened the garter belt, and then he'd slip them down her legs. And he said it was really a turn-on. It was really a turn-on, the feeling of the nylon, and then her bare skin, and then pulling the shoes off after he pulled the hose off. It was a turn-on. And I said, well, that's a foot fetish. And he said, well, I don't think of it as a fetish. I just think that it encourages me. I really notice women's ankles and their feet now. I really, and I want to touch them. I said, well, that's a foot fetish. Because I've had guys that really are just in love with women's feet, or in love with women's legs. And I guess a man or a woman could be in love with any part of a body, but the foot fetishes are really in a class of their own. And
let me ask you this, okay? Are you familiar with the story of Jeffrey Epstein?
No, the name doesn't sound familiar.
Jeffrey Epstein is a billionaire. He lived in Florida, in Palm Beach. He had a place in New York. And he became famous because he flew Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker on his private 747 to Africa for an AIDS conference, right? Shortly after that, he was arrested in a big giant case because he was molesting three little 14-year-old girls every single day at his Palm Beach mansion, okay? It was a horrific child molestation case. Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton was flying on his plane. Are you familiar with that story at all?
It's beginning to sound familiar. It seems like some of it has come up recently.
Right. This is all recent.
See if Hillary knew about it and if Bill was connected to the molestation.
I got more for you, okay? And I want to get your opinion on this.
I'm fascinated. Yeah, keep on.
Jeffrey Epstein had a girlfriend, buddy, friend, partner, whatever, named Ghislaine Maxwell, who used to procure these little 13 and 14-year-old girls for him. After Jeffrey Epstein was... One more time?
Were they posing these little girls as models? Was this kind of a...
Yes, there was a modeling agency. There was a modeling agency, too. There was a model scout named Jean-Luc Brunel. It was part of this whole thing, too. As a matter of fact, he visited Epstein in prison every single week. Now, there was another thing. This woman, Ghislaine Maxwell.
In depth. I've only heard pieces of this.
Okay,
now.
but let me hit you with this. That after Epstein was convicted and Ghislaine Maxwell was named and investigated by the police and everything like that, she was they gave immunity to all his co-conspirators. Ghislaine Maxwell attended Chelsea Clinton's wedding, and she's in the pictures. She's there. She's been identified there at the wedding after she was involved in this big giant pedophilia scandal. Now, in Bill Clinton's fantasies, did anything like that ever come up?
Never. Nothing any remotely relating to that came up. Okay. Apparently, this woman donated a huge amount of money to the Clintons. That's the only reason they'd want her at the wedding, I would think. You don't think Bill was involved with her, do you?
No, I don't think Bill was involved in Ghislaine. No, but he has been.
He might have been with the 14-year-old children.
Well, yeah, he was on the plane, and I believe also too he was on Mr. Epstein's private island in the Virgin Islands, where this kind of stuff is also alleged to have gone on by witnesses. There's a federal lawsuit right now by these victims, and he was convicted of this. He pled guilty, but now there's a civil lawsuit that they're trying to release all the facts of why he got this great deal, because the guy was politically connected with everybody involved, and he got this great deal. He only served 13 months in a jail that he had donated $90,000 to this jail down in Palm Beach, Florida, and he served in a private wing. He was the only inmate in this wing of the jail, and he only had to serve. He only had to sleep overnight. They let him out during the day. He got on his plane. He went to New York. He went to Virgin Islands, whatever he wanted to do, and he only had to sleep there at night.
What a setup!
Oh, you have no idea. Okay, and we can go into this in more detail off the air in the future. But with this knowing,
Ed, I will tell you this.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton and Hillary will do whatever it takes to win, and you can't tell me that if they were offered enough money, they wouldn't be involved with 14-year-old girls or anybody. It doesn't matter to them. They have no scruples. Now, did they ever investigate Bill Clinton and ask him if he had been involved firsthand with these girls?
No, he's never been deposed in this case because the guy got such a sweetheart deal. It's in a long story. You can listen to some of my past shows. We've done a lot of.
Doesn't that make you sick?
It makes me very sick.
Absolutely.
Especially when you consider
my own childhood. I can't fathom that it goes on anywhere else. But I know it does. But it's sickening. Absolutely sickening.
Sally, did you ever consider the fact that since you were abused as a child, that people that are predators can spot that in you and come into your life?
Of course. I was a pleaser. My mother made sure that I was a pleaser. I learned that as long as I was a pleaser, that she didn't slap me. She didn't fuss at me. She didn't treat me like her enemy. And so when Bill Clinton came along, of course, there were other Bill Clintons. There were not that they were married or not that they were long-lasting, but I didn't give in. I learned to say no. But I will be honest with you, there's that something inside of me that is willing to cave because that's my mother, and I fear her.
I understand.
And they see me. They see that. They see the vulnerability. Yes.
So you've heard of the other allegations with Paula Jones, where he was, and these other women that were actually rape allegations against Bill Clinton, because they accused him of being a sexual predator, and he targeted it on you. He honed in on you. I knew he could show up at your apartment there. You're coming by for a business deal, and he says, "Well, no, I got other intentions in mind, and I'm going to show up at our apartment." So knowing what you know, do you believe these other allegations about Bill Clinton, that he was a sexual predator, sexual assault against these other women like Paula Jones?
I'd rather not say, because I know that money exchanged hands and a lot of other things. And you see, I wasn't willing to sell my soul. I didn't need the publicity, and I didn't need the involvement. So I ran. I didn't take the job. And for that reason, that's when the attacks started. Now, I know that a lot of, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to lay it right on the line.
Okay.
Some women have taken this bimbo label and they've used it to their advantage. They've made money. They've posed so that they made more money. They've had plastic surgeries for free, and they've had all the goodies, and they still want it because a lot of people don't have anything else in their lives. If you suddenly are in the limelight, you love the applause, you love the attention, you love seeing your name and your face on television and on magazines and all, that's a stimulus. That actually is a turn on, and it makes you feel like a movie star. Well, I had my first television show when I was a senior in high school. I've modeled. I've been Miss Arkansas. I've been on the stage of the Miss America pageant. I've been in the homes of the rich and famous. I don't need the publicity, and it doesn't turn me on at all. In fact, it has nothing to do with me being older. I stopped feeling that I needed that as a stimulus a long time ago. It was a way of life for me. It's not for some of these people. And they have to grab this little bit of fame while they can because it's all they ever had.
Sally, I totally understand.
Our stories are different, okay?
Right.
Our stories are completely different. And because I was a trained, I was a trained sex object for my mother. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't need any kind of stimulation, and I certainly don't need to be out there and be vulnerable to people again who can read me like a clock.
Okay.
You know, I stopped being my mother's victim a long time ago, but she pulled the gun out from under the bed when I tried to address her abuse when I came back from China. I was strong when I came back from China. I had conquered the elements, and I had learned to survive on my own. And when I got home, the first thing I was ready to do was to confront my mother about the abuse. And she pulled my father's shotgun out from under the bed, pointed at me, and she said, get your ass out of my house. And she died. She left everything to my daughters, but with the understanding they didn't get the money until they turned their backs on me. That's what I call the worst kind of mother, evil. And I see so much of Hillary Clinton in this. It's very parallel, the type of women that do these things. And they just don't have any heart. They are completely possessed by evil.
Okay, Sally, we're down to like the last 5 minutes. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to get out?
I'm not a victim. I'm writing my story. It's been very therapeutic for me. I've had lots of fun and triumph and success in my life, as well as tragedy and loss. But I'm going to end on a high note. I do not let these people get the best of me. Hillary Clinton had started her tactics again with me being followed. 3 days ago in the mail, I got underwear from a young man on Facebook that was suddenly in love with me. And he had pictures, and he was handsome, and he was 48 years old. And he sent me his underwear because he wanted me to be photographed in it so he could see me. It was just really exciting. That's Hillary's tactics. Can you imagine if she got a picture of me in this fella's underwear? That's the kind of garbage she wants to pull up. Now, to say that I'm stupid, that I'm an idiot, and that I'm not to be trusted. I think the word they like to use is unreliable. Okay, that's the guy who's written the book. The guy from Arkansas calls me unreliable, and the Arkansas Press says I'm kooky. But this is the way they try to damage your reputation to make you unbelievable.
I can tell you this, Sally, okay? We have several chat rooms where people who listen to the show live right now are typing in comments, and no one thinks you're kooky. Everyone thinks you're a very credible witness, okay? It's in every single chat room I've read so far, okay, as we've been talking. Why did you agree to do...
I appreciate it.
What? Don't. You're genuine. Everyone says you're genuine. Now, let me ask you a question. Why did you agree to do this interview right now today? You haven't done any other publicity. Has anybody else contacted you?
Oh, yeah, I've had people contact me. But, a Facebook friend actually said she recommended me to you.
Yeah, Laura.
And I trust the people. I trust the people that are with me on Facebook because I read them every day. And they don't have to agree with me. They don't have to compliment me. But I know the ones that are sincere. When Laura said that she had contacted you and wanted to know if I would be agreeable to that, I said, yes, here's my email address. You don't trust a lot of people these days. At least I don't. And I trusted Laura.
Yeah, I trust Laura, too. I like her very much, yeah.
She checked books out for me a long time ago in the library, okay? I'm kind of a library kook. But I've enjoyed it, Ed. I liked hearing that you are more liberal than you are conservative. Because I don't want everybody to agree with me. I want everybody to be able to express themselves. And we have to have liberals as well as we have conservatives. But the fact that she said you didn't want Hillary in the White House, that made me know that we had something in common.
I'm very aware, like I was just describing to you before, about this Epstein case. I'm very aware, and we have people about the whole Mena, Arkansas airport. The people who listen to this show are very aware of these kind of crimes that went on throughout the history of the Clintons. Okay, and I don't think anybody here with half a brain can endorse the Clintons. And I hate to sound biased, but listen, it's the facts. When you got the facts in front of you, what are you going to do?
I know. And do you realize this is Hillary Clinton's territory right here? She even went to my hometown and spoke to 600 people. Most of them had not even registered to vote. But it was to show me that she could come back into my life she could get that close. And it's scary. But see, she has Secret Service. I have security, but it's certainly not Secret Service full time. I will tell you this: if I knew more about the MENA business, I'd write about that too. Except the people who were professional journalists weren't allowed to get close to it. It must be a very, very guarded secret, and the people in MENA must be paid to keep quiet, because I'm sure it's a small town and they know a lot more than they are ever able to express. But you know how many people have died that have been connected to the Clintons? How many people have committed suicide? How many people have disappeared?
Yeah, and how many other guests I've contacted who've known the Clintons, Bill and the brother, what's his name again? Roger. That have known them from childhood that are afraid to come on the show. Okay? They talked me off the air. I've talked to a lot of people surrounded with the Clintons, and they're afraid to come on the air, but they'll talk me off the air.
Do you realize how much money they have?
Oh.
And they're going to be able to buy this election for Hillary, because they'll be able to pay when I ran for mayor, they paid the black people to go to the polls and vote. And now then they pay them much more than just $20 to get on the bus and $20 when they get off. They're going to be paying them a lot of money. And it's going to be massive. And then Soros, I think, donated $15 million toward getting illegals to be able to vote. The whole thing is so out of control, it's frightening. How often do you have your show, Ed? Is it every day?
No, I do. God forbid. Okay, I do a show.
It's Saturday, but there's a Friday night too.
I do a Friday night show at 5 p.m. and I do a Saturday show at 3. But I've been told we're going to be moving it. Yeah, and Danny, I agree. I think we should move it. I thank you very much. We're going to be moving this show from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Saturdays. And then I do shows, too, in the member section that are the subscription-based that you can subscribe to. And I do a little impromptu shows, too. I go down, I cover the Trump rally, or I cover the Hillary... I cover the Hillary Clinton... Oh, I could tell you a story that I can report to you. That when I covered the Hillary Clinton rally here in Nevada, there were only 600 people there, and about 200 or 300 were these union members who had no idea who Hillary was. Okay?
They pay them.
Yeah.
So they pay them to fill the audience, yes.
Yeah, half of them didn't speak English.
Ed,
yeah. I'm
gonna do a little scouting around here and find out where Roger is now and see what I can do in my spare time, so I can just give you a little upbeat on it. But it's been fun.
It has been fun.
I really enjoyed being with you.
And the audience has loved it. Sally Miller, Beauty Queen, Let No Deed Go Unpublished. Sally Miller, thank you so much, okay? I guess we lost it.
You went a little over there.
What's it supposed to be, 115?
Say what?
Oh, 115 minutes? Oh, yeah, I'm not looking at the clock. Oh, yeah, it's 4:55 it's over, right?
Yeah, about 5 minutes still. You didn't hear the music?
No, it was really, really low. I didn't hear it this time.
Okay.
I'll get the hang of it, you know.
No worries. Everything can be fixed in post.